Okay, Mr. Available, this one's for you. Mr. Available being the one that said that he wished I hadn't deleted my 45-minute drunk and rambly video. I'm not drunk. I don't have any booze. In fact, I forgot my coffee. God, it's irritating when you don't have editing software anymore and you've just got to see all these flaws, but it doesn't matter, whatever. See all these flaws, it's a nice analogy for my channel anyway. I didn't come on with anything to talk about. Always your first mistake on YouTube. So I'm sat here because my friend goes and plays Risk, which is a board game, with his friends on Sundays. And he used to go and play Risk with them, and it was quite fun. But when I started getting down, being a group of 20-year-old boys, it felt like no one really kind of had any support for me or gave a fuck about me, so now I don't really go on Sundays because because once you fall on hard times and you realise that those people aren't there to pick you up, it becomes very hard to see their friendship as valid. And my boyfriend kind of says, and he's a happy person and, you know, generally a very sunny kind of a person. He says, well, why don't you just go and enjoy them for what they are, you know? Just go and enjoy, you know, having, you know, socialising without, you know, they don't need to be proper friends. But for me it feels like, what's the point if it's not genuine at all? I realise that I do all kinds of things that are bad for me. She says, taking the poke on her mini. I'm responsible for quite a lot of my own unhappiness. Like, I did a really emo thing a couple of days ago, and I'm really embarrassed about it in hindsight, but what are you going to do? Start my time, I didn't even think about that. Just briefly, while I've still got at least some people's attention, it says on my channel now that I can upload videos of longer than 15 minutes above, like, my upload thing. Is that everyone? Like, I don't seem to have been given partnership status or anything. And when I look it up in the help files of YouTube, it says that only partners that were partners before the recent changes can upload videos of longer than 15 minutes, so I'm a bit confused. I'm about to find out anyway if you're watching this video, because I can't edit. Sorry, yeah, so I did an embarrassing thing on Facebook a couple of days ago where, like, I basically put up that my full name, you know, realises that no one gives a fuck what her Facebook status is. And people responded thinking that I was kind of like being blasé and being cool or something, and I kind of had a bit of a rant about how no one's really friends with anyone anymore, and how, like, people like me kind of fall by the wayside. People that need actual friends and support and have bad times fall by the wayside, while the people that are the most kind of readily entertaining and happy become more and more entertaining and happy with the more encouragement that they're given. Which was a little bit embarrassing. But a few nice people came through and were like, oh, sorry, Jess, I didn't realise that you felt that way, like, shall we hang out? And I find that I don't even really want to text them back. It's like I don't think anyone's really good enough to hang around with or something. I recognise none of this makes me look good, I'm just being honest. A lot of people text me back and they're perfectly nice people that I like, and yeah, I don't feel like I want to hang around with anyone. I realise, like, as soon as someone is offering, I feel like terrified at the idea of going out and having to perform, and like maybe I'm just better off here in my room. So much of what makes me unhappy I completely do to myself. You know, like this situation I'm talking about, I used to have somewhere to go around on Sunday afternoons and play board games. Until I started needing more than that. And now it's, you know, almost my decision not to go around there anymore and to spend my time feeling lonely and down instead. And that's just stupid, isn't it? I feel so, like, such a victim of my own life, and yet so much of what I do to myself. I cause arguments with my boyfriend because I feel down and I want someone to take it out on, but then I just feel down because I've had an argument with my boyfriend, you know, that sort of shit. It's really irritating. It's like I'm two different people and the one person just keeps destroying everything and the other person's just trying to put themselves out there in the world and find something for themselves and find some happiness. And the other one just keeps destroying everything. And I flip back and forth between those two people. Whenever I get depressed, I fuck up everything I achieved when I was happy. I mean, like, yeah, I mean, in terms of substance, I didn't achieve that much when I was happy because I didn't have friends to pick me up when I was down. But I did at least have, like, something to do. The occasional feeling of being a part of something, being a young person and having fun. But then I just think about it and I feel really sad and I think, why don't I just dedicate myself to a life of being alone and then I never have to, like, feel the disappointment of no one caring and feel the pain of being alone, because it's just kind of what I've come to expect and how I live my life. But I don't think human beings can really live like that. Maybe like stronger human beings than I can. There's nothing worse than sitting here and chatting shit at 800 people, I tell you. Nothing worse than falling in a silent moment. And someone said, I can't remember who it was, but someone said in my comments that, you know, I should be really grateful that I'm sitting here with my degree and my gas fire and all of those kind of things. And I totally agree with them. I have absolutely no argument with that. That really that my shit is so insignificant in the scheme of world suffering. I have absolutely no argument with that at all. It's another reason to hate myself, really, that I'm so self-centered in a world like this. But it's not that I don't care about those things. It's like the world is already such an awful place because of all those things, and then any small joy that you get seems to just be something so precious that when you lose it, it seems like the world is an even worse place. Like, how can there be all this suffering in the world and these bad things keep happening to me? It seems like it accumulates with that stuff. It's not like that stuff doesn't matter because my stuff does. I wish that was true. It's more like I feel the suffering of so intensely of other people as well as my own, that it feels like there are so few moments of like actual joy and freedom and happiness and youth, you know. I'm 24 and I had a breakdown when I was 15, and I don't feel like I've ever been like been like an established happy teenager, or really got many of those teenage experiences, or, you know, like, I've had all these experiences like first love, but they turned out to be really abusive and he beat me up. You know, I have all the experiences, they just go so horribly wrong that in the end it feels like nothing. I mean, and I thought that when I was sitting here making these videos, for example, maybe like 6 months ago or a year ago, I thought that everyone's life was like that, and that I had some delusional picture of like this group of happy people out there that are living really good lives and have no sense of true depression. I thought that I must just be making that up, and that I'm just being selfish and I'm not seeing the suffering in other people's lives and trying to make their lives look like the grass is always greener on the other side. But actually, like, my boyfriend, I've been going out with him now for about 3 months, and I'm realising more and more that he has absolutely no conception of like any kind of enduring suffering. He just is like a happy person, and people respond to him as a happy person, and he has lots of friends, and it's quite mad. Like, it's not like he's never had anything bad happen to him in his life, but it was just like that was a rough period and it's over now, and I generally am quite a happy person. Whereas, like, it seems to me that like they tag team, the bad events in my life just tag team each other, so that every time I'm getting back up. I can't remember who it was that was talking about this in my comments yesterday, but it seemed like quite a relevant story that he was telling about a friend of his who like found that she'd achieve things when she wasn't depressed, and then she'd get depressed and regress, and then it was only through like lasting kind of long-term medication and kind of monitoring those regressions that she's found that she can be a successful, happy person. It's so true, because every time I start again and I'm like born again, and it's like, right, I'm a fucking soldier, I'm coming back at this shit. Like, life is hard, it's hard for everyone, and I'm going to pick myself up and stop feeling sorry for myself, and I'm going to get back out there and do it. Something else will happen and I'll get knocked back and regress again, and then fail whatever it was that I set out to achieve, and then that will just propagate itself as more depression. And I'm so fed up of being such a miserable son of a bitch as well. Like, I like people that are happy and see the joy in things. I don't want to sit there and watch YouTubers talk about how crap their lives are. No one wants to sit and listen to that. If it's a close friend of mine, I'll take loads and loads of time over picking them up and helping them. But if they're just someone I don't know, who wants to sit there and listen to this? I suppose, like, depressed people do. If nothing else, we realise that we're not alone in our suffering, so there's that. I was having this discussion with my boyfriend the other day about various types of therapy, and I was saying I would never go back to psychotherapy because it was so horrifically painful to have someone, like, talk to you in a chatty way until they find something which is painful to you, and then keep pressing that button until you cry, and that's pretty much what psychotherapy is. Let's explore in depth this one thing that you really don't want to think about, you know? And I'm sure that there is some catharsis in that. Some people are helped by psychotherapy. I found it just so... I was probably never more suicidal than I was when I was in, like, regular psychotherapy. So I was talking to him about CBT, which means cognitive behavioural therapy. And in case you don't know, cognitive behavioural therapy's approach is pretty much to go, it doesn't matter what happened to you in the past, doesn't matter. The fact is that thinking that the world is black is what makes you feel depressed, so stop thinking that the world is black and think that it's white instead. And I always really rejected CBT because it feels to me to deny my perception and my lived experience as a human being, it seems to me like deluding yourself. You're just like, okay, just don't think that, it makes you feel bad, but it's like, that's what you think. Isn't that part of who you are? And so he was saying, but if it makes you, wouldn't you rather be happy? And that's true of him, I think, a lot more, where he's willing to kind of maybe substitute a bit more of his feelings or who he is to come across like he's coping much better than he is, so that other people don't feel put on a downer by him. And it works. He has lots of friends, and I'm sure that's what sociable and probably not particularly clinically depressed people do when they're down, is either like find a way to reach out to someone that they know really cares about them, or try to put a happier face on it so that people don't feel burdened. But I realised when I was talking to him that I almost really don't want to let go of the depression. It's almost like, in a really sick way, it's like it's the only thing that's been with me since the beginning, and I always feel like it's who I am now. And you know, given this option with CBT to brainwash myself into thinking the way I don't think, I feel like something that's me is being stolen from me. And I think the problem is that it's because probably I had a breakdown. I felt really miserable at school. I identified myself as that, like, goth girl that listens to rock music and all that kind of stuff. Really identified myself as a miserable goth chick. And then I had a breakdown, and then I identified myself really strongly as, like, this mental patient against the nurses. And then I fell in love with one of the patients, and I moved in with him. And I really identified myself strongly as, like, us goth guys, that we're like subculture, and we're not mainstream like you, and you don't understand our love because it's so dark. And then he stole my virginity. Then I lost my virginity to him voluntarily, and he beat me up. And then, you know, it's like I've always been identified as, I find the culture that we live in painfully flippant about things that seem to me to be so important. I find basically, I don't like to use the word evil, it makes me sound religious, but I find our culture abhorrent. I can't watch TV without talking at it. I can't watch a TV program without deconstructing it from a feminist standpoint. You know, it's horrific. I hate our culture, and I feel like part of what makes me me is standing in complete opposition to everything that we think to everything that a capitalist patriarchy, Western capitalist patriarchy values. And it feels like I'd be brainwashing myself to join the happy hordes of mindless consumers. But if I'm so unhappy, then maybe, you should do. I don't know. You're taught by Hollywood films that, your instincts tell you what's right and what's wrong, and that the hero does what's right. So then my instincts tell me that this is so wrong, and the heroic thing to do is to stand against it. And yet that leads to nothing but unhappiness. And isn't that the ultimate goal of life? To find and hold on to happiness for these brief moments as long as you can. No. So I find myself reverting to sit on YouTube and talking about depressing topics again, but really, I value this so much. I feel like this is really all I have. I have, well, in theory I have 2,000 people that want to hear what I want to say on YouTube. And in theory, that's a success. And that never goes away, and even in my lowest moments, and particularly in my lowest moments actually, because whenever I go quiet for months at a time, it's because I'm having a good time, I'm having a happy period, and it's only really when all else is lost that YouTube comes back to the forefront. And that's really a bit depressing, isn't it, for you guys? Sorry. Just sitting here warbling to myself. My housemates are walking by in the hallway and I must look like an utter. Oh wow. And it's not, I can see the inherent value in things. I think someone else said in my comments that I should take some time to get some really good advice, take some time to get some quality sunlight in my life, every morning. For someone with seasonal affective disorder, that's very good advice. Unfortunately, I woke up and it was a really grey day, and that's always gives me pretty much a 75% chance of having a crap day. It's always like a 75% chance I'll have a good day when I wake up on a sunny day. And living in Britain, that doesn't happen too often, unfortunately. I've got an American passport, I'll probably remedy that one day. I don't remember what I was saying, sorry. It's great, I'm just zoning in and out now. So about that kind of like pushing out and succeeding and then regressing every time you get depressed, it's like the periods where I'm happy and can make a difference in my life are getting smaller and smaller as I get knocked back more and more. So that the periods where I'm kind of feeling on top of my game become like this desperate frenzy to achieve as much as possible, and inevitably I just have a breakdown after that, because like with this uni stuff, I saw how much I needed to do to get a first. So every morning I got up at 9 o'clock in the morning and I worked for 9 hours a day, and I was, I just pushed myself too far, so that my life just seemed like a constant battle, getting up, working, going to bed, getting up, working, going to bed, and that caused me to get depressed and lose that kind of impetus I had. During the last happy period I had, I started looking up graduate opportunities, because I will graduate. I won't get a first probably, but I will still graduate. And I was going to look for I was looking at all these graduate opportunities for publishing, and they're all looking for like a first from a top 10 university, and I don't go to a top 10 university, so I needed to get a first. And I was getting really excited about this idea of going and becoming like a trainee editor or a trainee publisher or something. And because I want to be a writer, and you can't make money just writing just off the bat like that. Well, you probably can. I'm not talented enough to make money without years of practice ahead of me. So I think the next best thing to do is to go into like editing, proofreading, or being the person at a publishing company that gets to decide what's published and what isn't, and working with that book through to the final completion. I think that would just be an absolutely like a dream job for me. Unfortunately, like the whole industry's on the way out with Kindle and those kind of things now, and just torrenting and things. Like, there's no money to be had in it anymore, but whatever. I was getting really excited about that, and then I started to get really down, and then I got an essay marked back that said I was going to get first, and then it started to seem further and further away, and or like there's so many where I feel so motivated to do something. Often when I'm really baked and I've been getting stoned all day, and I lie in bed at the end of the day and thinking to myself, I don't want to be high right now. I don't want to have been high for the last 8 years. I'm missing out on my life getting stoned all the time, and I want to be out there, like, living it and accomplishing it while I'm young and able-bodied as I can, living every second of my life and enjoying every second in whatever way I can. And all I've got to do is get up tomorrow morning and throw the weed away and just never smoke it again. All I've got to do to stop being afraid of dying of lung cancer all the time is to get up and throw the cigarettes in the bin. Make that, the most powerful moment we have is right now. So busy making plans that the inherent power of right now passes me by. When I give up weed, this will be what this is like, and when I've got friends, this is what this will be like, and now, right now, is the moment that I have to change things. And then I'll wake up, and after a few hours, I'll start taking the weed analogy and start getting, craving, and then I'll be getting high by like 11 o'clock in the morning every day, because that power that I realised in that epiphany, lying in bed, seems so difficult to force myself to do at that point that it's, don't know, I defeat myself, or depression defeats me, one of the two, because I don't know where the line between depression and myself stops. And actually, depression isn't an objective thing. It can't exist without my body. It's almost like a symbiotic state, my existence and depression's existence. But maybe that's a really bad way of looking at it, looking at like you're sharing your body with a kind of symbiotic alien thing living in your brain and making you fail shit. Maybe that's a really weak-willed, victimised way of looking at it. Maybe I need to look at it like I do it to myself. I have the power to stop suffering whenever I want to. I'm inclined to think that that's not true, because people tend to be depression sufferers for life. It tends to come and go for life. And if you just had the power to stop, wouldn't more people do it? Like, I am someone that used to self-harm. I am a bit of a masochist. I do seem to like destroying my own shit. But there must be other people that are just kind of like innocent victims of depression, and surely those people would have chosen to stop suffering if it was possible to do that. It occurs to me also that I've never had I've never had blood tests and stuff. I've never investigated possible physical causes, because I don't want to spend the rest of my life on medication, even if it's not physical cause. But I mean, that seems to be what is implied. If they can find out, this is in your biochemistry and your like brain structure, and it's never going to go away, and the only way that you're ever going to live a normal life is to spend the rest of your life on medication. Because I've been on medication, and that isn't living. I can't enjoy life. I never have any of those moments where like I truly know that I'm alive in that moment. I never have a sense of like a connectedness to the entire planet and everything. I can never feel really in love with someone, or have orgasms, or even, I mean, like, you can't feel aroused, and that's a recognised side effect of antidepressants, is like a depletion in your libido. But what I find interesting is it seems to also deplete, like, I think that it's difficult to talk about, but I think it's like the way that I experience the world is part of, like, my sexuality doesn't just start and end with sex. I feel like I experience the world in an erotic way, that the world is an erotic thing, and that sensuality kind of extends beyond simply man-woman sexual relations, but into everything, into the way that this table feels under my fingertips, and and the way my heart feels beating in my chest, and these things are all sensual, erotic things. So like, yeah. So antidepressants deplete your libido, but that libido isn't just my experience of sex or my desire to masturbate or not masturbate. That libido is my desire to laugh and smile and write anything, create, make music, find adventures, and I don't want to live the rest of my life like that. Although that type of brain makes for a very good capitalist drone, and that's what I'm about to become. So maybe I'd be better suited like that. I don't know. Probably only talking to MisterAvailable now. That's cool. You and me, buddy. Whoever else listens. I mean, if you've got to this point, you must have some engagement with my kind of line of thought. I suppose you don't feel that way yourself necessarily, but you're certainly following. Otherwise, you wouldn't bother watching it, presumably. And that's really interesting, because that lends even more weight to the idea that maybe I'm not completely like mental. Isn't there a famous quote about depression that if you can live in a world like this and not be depressed, then there really is something wrong with you, something along those lines. That makes a lot of sense. It's probably one of those things that depressed people tell one another as a means of comfort. Like, hey, you're not mad, you live in a pretty fucked up world. Like, I don't know how much of a sense people really have of that, but like, it's pretty fucked up. It's all nice and cozy here for us in the West. I mean, by cozy, I mean 45 years of capitalist slavery and fucked up materialistic values and a lack of, recognition of ugly women and so on and so on. But it's a pretty good fucking life we've got, compared to a lot of the capitalist drones. So if you can't feel down about the world that you live in at least some of the time, then, and you don't feel guilty in being in the situation that you are in at least some of the time, then you're pretty apathetic as a human being, I would say. I spent last night watching Michael Moore's, Capitalism, A Love Story, I think it's called. Seen a few of the Michael Moore films, so I think all of the Michael Moore films. And whilst I do think that I do have some objections towards his kind of delivery, the guy's got a decent point. Yeah, I mean, if you can live in a system like that and not feel down about it, at least some of the time when you think about it, there really isn't me with the mental health problems. But then I shouldn't feel like I am somewhere that society should deposit its guilt and suffering so that I'll feel it, so that, I shouldn't take that burden on necessarily myself. Well, if everyone around me is apathetic, then there's a lot of feeling of that suffering to be done, and there's a lot of changing to be done, and someone like me shouldn't give up that sensitivity to suffering if it means that it will lead me to change something about the world. If it's preferable to a therapist that I join the kind of happy masses that accept the way that we live and the way that things are, then maybe it's better for me to stay over here in the suffering. I don't know. Or maybe you could look at it the other way and say, well, depression actually completely neutralizes my ability to be able to do anything. But maybe if you're not depressed, then you have no reason to change anything. Okay, that's a tautological argument. Whatever. I'm just still sitting here talking to you. I don't even know how long this video is. Probably really fucking long. I should probably stop. Shit, I think I can see in the mirror that it's 42 minutes. I should stop now for sure. I just really didn't want to, because spending another Sunday on my own, and I haven't done any work at all this week. I've just given up on my degree, and I can feel it slipping away. It's getting more and more work to be done when I eventually get back to it, and yet I can't seem to push through this kind of stoned depression to be like, right now is the time to do that. Never the right time to sit down and do some work, huh? So lazy. Yeah, I'm sorry. I don't want to be a depressing influence on anyone, and I don't want to be dull, and don't want to be irrelevant. So I really hope that I haven't been. Presumably, if you're still watching, you found something in it. And thank you for listening, I suppose. Cheers.